Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the series where I show you how to make a Discord bot using interactions.py. Today I will be going over components, what they are, how to use them, and how to code them yourself.
First, I'll show you how components are, how they work, and how they look like. So I have an example command called component command. It's just a simple example command that sends components. So these are all the components in Discord so far. There's 5 types of buttons, and then there's one select menu. So these buttons, you can just click them, and the bot can respond back based on which button you clicked. So I clicked on them, and then it said what component I clicked on it. And there's also the link button, which you can set to any URL, and it will take you there. Now the select options, so they're a little different and more complicated, but there's 2 ways. One, you can set it for only to be able to select one option, or you can select it to select multiple options like what I have done here. And so I've selected 2 options, and it told me what I selected. Let's say I only select one of them, and it still works. And you can customize them as much as you want. You can change the labels, you can change the text for the select, and lots more. So how do we start sending and interacting with components? First things first, you need to have a basic bot. If you don't know how to make one like this shown over here, then watch my previous video, which is the starting video for this series. First, let's make a command that will send the components. So I will create the decorator. I'll call it name equals component command. I'll set a description as this, and then the scope. This is optional, but it's your guild ID, which is very helpful for testing because it'll appear instantly in the server instead of taking forever like global commands. Well, they don't take forever, but they just take up to an hour. For simplicity, I'm going to import the components from interactions itself, so I don't have to type a lot. So I'm going to write from interactions import button, and let's also do button style, and select menu, and select option. These are the things that you'll need, which are related to the components. And then over here down in the command, let's make one component. Let's call it button. We'll just make a button, and we will have a style. So the style, there's 5. It's just the color. The first 4 are for the color, and the 5th one, it's a URL button, meaning you have to put the URL. In buttons, you also have to put the custom ID. So a custom ID is a string which is less than 100 characters, less than or equal to. You can keep it whatever you want. I'm gonna keep it primary. It is useful for distinguishing between which component was pressed, and there cannot be more than one component with the same custom ID in the same message. And I'm gonna label it with blue button. And that's all you need for a button. So to send it, you need to use await ctx.send, and then you need to have the content. You cannot send without the content. For sending the components, you have to use components equals, and then there's different ways of sending buttons. We'll go through them one by one. So I will try singular component sending first. So this is one way you could do it. So I will run the bot, and then I will switch over to my Discord once it's ready, which it now is. And then when I try to do component command, here it is, hello world with a blue button. But when we click it, we don't get any response. It says this interaction failed. This is supposed to happen because we are not interacting with it. Like, we are not responding to the button. We do not have the code for it yet. But we will go to it soon. So another way of sending it is with an action row. So you create an action row with, oh yeah, you need to also import action row like this, and then you make it, and then put components equals, and then your components. You can have up to 5 components in one action row and 5 action rows in one message, but you can only have one select menu per action row, and you cannot mix buttons and select menus in the same action row. So we can send it like this. So if I start the bot, and it's ready now, once I switch over and do /component command, as you can see, it still sends, but it still fails because we haven't done that yet. I'll go through the last method of sending, but before I do, I'm going to create another button. Let's call this button2 equals button. Let's use let's do danger. So we have blue and red button, and then custom ID, we can call it danger, and label red button. And then in the action row, you can put in button2. And then once we run this, and then when the bot is ready, and when I go over to my Discord and then use the command, as you can see, there are now 2 buttons. They are in the same order as how you put them in the action row. So these are the 2 ways that you can send: single component or in an action row. There's another way as well. You can also, instead of using action rows, you could also just use a list like this. You can do it like this, and it should work. So if I run this, and the bot will be ready soon, then when I use this, it still works. However, let's say you want more than one action row. In your message. Let's say you want 1 button per action row, you can just do that. So you would have 1 action row with 1 button, and then 1 action row with another button. So if I run this, let's see what happens. When I use the command, as you can see, the buttons are below one another. One is above and one is below. This is because action rows are vertical. So you can have 5 buttons like this in one action row, and then 5 action rows like this. So up to 25 components in one message, but only up to 5 select menus. And of course, you could also do this with action rows as well. You can also mix them. So you could do action row, and then you could put in another button. You cannot put the same button in because, as I said, the custom ID needs to be different. So let's do a green button, which will be style equals button style, which is success for green, and then the label should be green button, and then we can change this to button 3. And then when we play this, and when I switch over to my Discord, and then use the command, as you can see, there are now 3 buttons: blue button and red button in one action row, and then green button in another. below them. This is how you send components, buttons right now in messages. Now I'll go over on sending select menus. So how do you create a select menu? So right now I'm gonna scrap this. I will create a select menu equals select menu. So the arguments in the select menu that you need to pass in are the custom ID and the options. Everything else is optional, but the custom ID and the options are required. So the custom ID, I will, let's say, select menu, and then placeholder, we'll get to that after the options. So what are the options? It's like the options in the select menu. If I scroll up, these things, you can have up to 25 options in one select. That's a lot. And also, I believe you can have up to 100 characters in one select option. So let's create a select option, and then in select options, you need to have a label and the value. Description and emoji and default are all optional. So you can fiddle around with it if you want, but I will just put in label equals option 1 and option 2, like that. And for select menu, let's also put in our placeholder. Oh yeah, I need to put a comma here, and then placeholder. So what the placeholder is if I go back to Discord, it says select an option. That is the placeholder right there. So I will just put in placeholder of the select menu. And you can also set minimum values and maximum values, which is like how many you want to select. By default, it'll only be 1. So if I send the select menu, and then run this bot after saving it, as you can see, it is ready. And then when I go over here and use the component command, here's a select, here's a placeholder, here are your options. When I select it, it does nothing because we haven't done anything to respond to. Now let's try the minimum values and maximum values. So minimum values, let's say min values, let's keep it to 1. And then maximum values, we can keep it to 2. So if we try that, then we can select up to 2 values in our select menu. So if I run the command now, as you can see, you can select multiple options. And then to finish selecting, you can just tap outside of the select menu, and then it'll process. And these are how to send components in interactions.py. So now you got all these components in your Discord server, but they don't seem to work. Why? Because you're not interacting with them. You're interacting with them, but you're not responding to the interactions. How do you respond to components? You need to use component callbacks. It is another decorator called that bot.component. And then inside of the brackets, you need to put the custom ID. In my case, I'm going to put primary, which is for the blue button. And then I will set the function, and then I'm going to send primary component into the chat. Now if I run this, this is a basic implementation of component callbacks. If I go over to Discord and click on the blue button, as you can see, it says primary component. But if I click on any other button, it won't do the same because this custom ID will only respond to the button which has the primary custom ID. But to circumvent this, you can stack decorators. So you can do add_bot.component. Then you can put something like danger. And then if I run this, now it will respond to both primary button and danger button. If I try this now, it sends a message for the blue button and the red button, but it still says primary component. How do you figure out which button was clicked? You can try to get the custom ID by doing ctx.data.customID. To get all the attributes of ctx, which is component context, check it out in the documentation, which is provided in the description box below. If I run this bot and then go back over here and then click on the blue button, it says primary. If I click on the red button, it says danger. As you can see, it is responding, and then it'll send the custom ID. Now there's no event for all the custom IDs, so for now you have to manually put them in. And you can also do the same with select menus. So I'll just put select menu. How do you get the options that the user selected? You do ctx.data.values. And then you'll need to put this in a string. It's going to be a list of options that are selected. And they are going to be the values of the select option. Not the label, the values. So if I run this, and then let's just use the component command, and then let's select both of them. As you can see, it is a list of the selected options. Let's try this again, only with option 2. Now it's only one option, and they're all values. There's also ctx.author in the context, which is basically who used the component. So you can do ctx.author.user.id to get the ID of someone who used the component. This is just an example of what you can do with component callbacks. So if I use that, then as you can see, it prints out the ID of my account, which is the same. Now, let's say you want to send a hidden message that only the person who clicked the component can see. No one else can. Not even the bot, even. So how do you do this? You can, you'll still need a content. So like, I'll just say hidden message. And then you need to put ephemeral equals true. For ephemeral, we'll make it so that only the person who clicked it can see the message that I sent. By the way, only components and / commands, which are basically interactions, can send ephemeral messages. Normal messages for like messages commands, you cannot send ephemeral messages. So if I use this select, then it sends a hidden message. And you can dismiss this, and now it's gone. Now you can also send components in the message. And I'll bring over the select from over here and put it in here. And then put in select menu. Oh, I misspelled it. Select menu. And then if I run this now, go over to Discord and use this. Now it sends a hidden message with the select, and you can use this and the bot can see the message because it had the components and you interacted with them. Otherwise, the bot cannot see the message. And this can keep on going forever. As you can see, it says only you can see this.
And that is how you can use, send, and interact with components using interactions.py in your Discord bot. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking this video, sharing with others, and subscribing as well. Don't forget to watch my other video if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more videos like this that will continue the series. Bye-bye.